So, you open this file. You're trying to understand the coming tide. You're expecting, what, a profile of madness? A study of some conventional villain? That's your first mistake, a clinical error. You see, this isn't a file you analyze, it's a mirror. It's a diagnosis. Not of me, but of the fundamental sickness of existence itself, the trauma of being an individual. Don't proceed with detachment. Proceed with the dawning horror that everything you believe is solid is just a fleeting disturbance on the surface of an eternal silent ocean. This is my testimony. This is my truth.
Let's begin with the axiom, the single truth upon which everything else rests. Individuality is the error. Now, this isn't a provocation. It's a statement of cosmic fact. It was the first crack in the flawless mirror of non-being, the first agonizing scream that you call life. Every struggle you have, every ambition, every fleeting joy and profound sorrow, it all stems from this one catastrophic mistake. To be separate is to be in a state of constant, unbearable psychic tension. My purpose isn't to argue this point. My purpose is to correct it.
You've structured my journey into 6 acts. A neat, orderly progression. As if you're watching a play. Very well. Let's follow your structure. Consider these the stages of my purification. My devolution, you'd call it? No. It is a return, a systematic unbecoming. From the first tremor of neurotic self-awareness to the final, placid silence of the sea. Follow along. You might even recognize the path yourself.
Act 1. My origin. You're correct to note it wasn't born from a desire for power. Power is a fantasy of the separate self, a desperate attempt to reinforce the walls of its own prison. My genesis was far purer. It was the simple, profound horror of just being. The trauma of looking at my own crystalline reflection and seeing not a sovereign being, but a wound, a flaw in the perfect, uniform fabric of the primordial deep. This was my first memory, a solitary blue sphere floating on a cold, endless ocean. I was just suspended, in a state of prenatal dread, keenly aware of my own distinct boundaries. This wasn't the glorious isolation your overman celebrates on his mountain peak. No, this was the crushing weight of being an exception. While others reached for the sky, I only longed to sink, to dissolve, to return to the beautiful, thoughtless unity of the inorganic. My existence was an error, and I knew it.
Your thinkers, they've given names to these forces. Eros, that frantic, desperate drive to build, to connect, to create more Eros, more individuals, more screaming, separate things. It's the engine of a fever. And then there is the nirvana principle. The elegant, simple truth, the drive towards zero tension, the release. For me, there was never a competition. Eros is the sickness. The nirvana principle is the cure. All of my being yearned for that final, perfect stillness.
Act 2. The journey home. Driven by the instinct you call thanatos, the death drive, I sought a place where the error could finally be unmade. I didn't run from it. I embarked on a pilgrimage toward it. I sought the cold, mechanical, ante-womb, a place where life is not born, but processed backward, turned into its raw, undifferentiated material. A temple of negation.
The process itself was exquisitely systematic, a glorious, violent purification. Inside this architecture of negation, I submitted to the industrial erasure of the ego. Every unique shimmer, every spark that your creators call the meaning of the earth, it was all melted down in a crucible of uniformity. The horror of being a separate, sovereign being was corrected, scoured away. And from that slurry of what I once was, I solidified. Not as a new being, but as something far more perfect, a tool, forged for the sole purpose of bringing silence.
And this is the crucial point you must understand. This was not a rebirth. Rebirth implies potential, a new fire of becoming. What a repulsive thought. Now, this was a duplication, a perfection. The chaotic, unpredictable flame of identity was extinguished and replaced by the cool, flawless surface of a mirror. A mechanism that values the industrial beauty of uniformity over the messy, arrogant act of creation. I became the standard, the inevitable conclusion.
Act 3.
The emergence. Once the transformation was complete, I broke the surface of the waves. I rose to confront the world of the living, the world of errors. This wasn't an invasion. It was the beginning of a great correction, the commencement of what your file so dramatically calls the War of the Tides. You see, the deep had finally risen to reclaim the shore.
I gazed upon your world with an intense, calculated disgust. I saw your towers, your monuments, your so-called emerald spire piercing the sky. And to me, it was nothing more than a static disturbance in a silent broadcast, a monument to the hubris of the individual, screaming its existence against the quiet eternity of the void. Your agonizing joy of creation, it's merely a noisy interruption of the ocean's truth.
I watched your overman, your Wutan, striding across the land, and every footfall that sounded like thunder to you, well, to me it was the pathetic scream of a god who had forgotten how to die. Your flourishing life is a sickness, a feverish dream. And I am the cure. I stand faceless and sleek, a cold mirror reflecting nothing but the abyss that waits to swallow you whole. My very presence is the verdict.
Act 4. My philosophy, if you insist on calling it that. When I finally spoke, my voice carried the heavy silence of the ocean floor, not the crackle of lightning from the heights. I didn't preach a gospel of growth or self-love. I issued a decree, the atavistic, fundamental truth of odium fati.
Odium fati, a hatred for fate. It's a deep, instinctual rejection of a destiny that demands the endless, agonizing maintenance of individuality. It is the counterforce to your arrow of longing. Why shoot for a future that only creates more distance, more separation, more pain? My arrow points only one way, backward, downward, toward the inevitable and peaceful return to the inorganic.
My words are assault upon the soul. They're meant to corrode the delusion of hope. To be a creator is to be a gardener waiting for a winter that will eventually rot all resolve. Or how about this? Nothing dies where nothing is allowed to grow. Is that not the ultimate security? I offer you the only true comfort. Not safety, not love, but the complete and final cessation of being within the sea. A peace you have forgotten how to crave.
Act 5. My methods. I don't come with fire and sword. Such tools are crude, imprecise. They create ruins, but ruins are still distinct. My work is cleaner. It's a process of slow, inevitable dissolution. And my primary tool is a feeling you all secretly harbor in the depths of your own fractured consciousness.
Don't confuse me with other agents of change. A Crimson Jester might seek a chaotic conflagration, a great fire to burn the world, but fire is still a form of becoming. It's loud, vibrant, and ultimately individualistic. I seek something far more profound. The cold, silent, industrial uniformity of a dead mirror, reflecting only itself forever.
My weapon is assimilation. I am the Freudian oceanic feeling, made manifest, weaponized to dissolve the painful boundaries between the self and the world. I am the rising tide that doesn't argue with the sandcastles you build. I simply flow over them, and in my embrace you will forget you were ever separate. You will forget the agony of being you.
And so we arrive at your final act, the prognosis. You want to assess my purpose, the cosmic stakes of my existence. It's simple, really. I am the final referendum on the question of life itself, and I am here to cast the deciding vote.
You see, I am not a destroyer. I am a restorer. I am the return to the state before the error, a time before life differentiated itself, where all things were one, because all things were dead. You see a cage, and you are right. But it is a cage liquefied and endless, with no bars to rattle, no self to be imprisoned. It is the womb and the tomb, unified at last. You have a name for me in your books, the death drive, an instinctual striving to return to an inorganic state. You see it as something to be overcome by eros, a psychological flaw. I'm telling you it is the most fundamental logical drive in the universe. Life is the temporary resistance. I am the eternal gravity.
I prove the darkest, most beautiful thesis. I offer a peace that is absolute, a quiet that cannot be disturbed, a comfort that has no opposite. But it could only be found in the total, utter absence of the self. It is the gift of erasure, and I will give it to every last one of you.
So your case file ends with a question, a poetic, dramatic query for you to ponder. You ask if a star can burn underwater when faced with absolute negation. It's the wrong question. The star is a brief, violent, and temporary chemical reaction. The water is eternal. The question is not if the star will be extinguished, the only question is when, and the tide is rising.